Well, good afternoon. It's Wednesday afternoon, and it's time for a first look at the sermon for this week at Dayspring Presbyterian Church. We're looking at the 15th message in the book of Exodus. We're in Exodus chapter 6, and we're in the middle of that book. It'll probably take us one more sermon to finish up with Exodus chapter 6, maybe not. And as we move through Exodus chapter 6, we come to one of those places that most people just skip over. That is a genealogy. Moses and Aaron have come up against difficulties. They've come up against the people saying, we don't even know what's going on here because ever since you guys started doing your thing, everything started getting worse for us. And God begins to address that, and he addresses it last week through some didactic teaching, explaining who he is, who they are, more about their identity and it being found in him. But then a genealogy drops in out of nowhere. Now, how does that fit in? Well, after a few days research on this text, it fits in, I believe, as a way of answering those objections about who are you, Aaron and Moses, to be in charge of this situation anyhow. And this wouldn't be the first time or the last time that it would be the first time actually, but it won't be the last time. If these objections come up throughout Moses and Aaron's ministry, people are going to say to them, who made you priest? Who made you prophet? Why do you think you're qualified? In fact, we've got several stories that show that you may not be qualified and be the person God has called to do this. And so this genealogy answers 3 or 4 of those questions about Moses and Aaron's qualifications. And it looks even into the future, into the book of Judges at the very end of the genealogy, which raises an interesting question that I don't know if we're going to deal with in the sermon. But obviously, Aaron's grandson, Phineas, that's mentioned at the end of this genealogy, Aaron probably wasn't alive when that was written. And this would have been in the time of the Judges. So I wonder what's going on there as other folks came along, other scholars, other writers, perhaps Samuel, came along and added this later to fill out the genealogy, to tell the whole story. I don't know, it's a very interesting thing in that observation, and to be Bible readers, we need to find these interesting little places like this and observe them and understand why they're there and know as much as we can about how they got there. So keep reading that text and look for some names you might recognize, Korah and Phineas and Aaron's sons that got in trouble later. You notice those names, and those are the critical points where people's authority would have been questioned, and relating back to the family genealogy would have been a way to answer those questions. So keep reading, keep praying as we move through Exodus that God will continue to bless our church, challenge our church, transform our church through a preaching of His Word. You guys have a great week.